In talking about functions, we often take a look at the domain and the range of a function. The domain is your possible input values, the numbers that you can plug into the function, and the range are the corresponding output values, often your y values. There's a couple of different ways that we can represent a domain and range. Most commonly in this class, we're going to be using interval notation. So interval notation is going to talk about where does your function start, comma, and where does it stop. We look at that interval of starting and stopping. So a closed interval, this one starts at A and stops at B. Now you might be a little more familiar with the symbols, A less than or equal to X, less than or equal to B. That's what this is referring to. So we can also talk about an open interval, AB. So it gets really close to A, but not exactly on A, and it ends really close to B, but not exactly on B. And that's what this is. A is less than X is less than B. This, again, is interval notation. And then we can talk about half open or half closed intervals. So, for example, if I have the inequality 3 is less than or equal to X is less than 5. You might be familiar with the dot method when we graph this on a number line. With the equals, remember we would use a filled in dot. And at 5, because there is no equals on it, we'd use an open dot. And these are all the numbers in between that we could use for X. Well, instead of using the filled in dot and the open dot, we're going to be using the bracket, which indicates that you can use the number or the equals, comma, and it goes all the way over to the number 5. Because that's not filled in, it's an open dot, we can't use the number 5, but we can get close to it. We're going to use the parenthesis. So for the following examples here, express each in terms of interval notation. So Harry's GPA is more than 3, but at most 3.5. Let's think about it on a number line. So 3.0, it's more than 3.0, so it's not equal to it, it's more than, so it's going to be an open dot. At most 3.5. It could be 3.5, but it can't be any bigger than that. So when I look at this and I write it in interval notation, I'm looking at starting at 3.0, finishing at 3.5, and then I have to get the right symbols at the ends here. So at 3.0, it's an open dot. So with open dots, we use parentheses, a filled in dot. I would use a bracket. For this one, Kayla got at least 95 on the quiz. So she potentially got 95. That's a filled in, but no more than 100. So the question is 100 open or filled in? Well, she could get 100, but she can't go bigger than 100. And it's all the scores in between. So in interval notation, we're starting at 95. We're ending at 100, and because both of those have solid dots on them, or filled in, we're looking at brackets. And you should get to the point where you don't have to use the number line, but you can just think about what are you starting at, what are you stopping at. So the starting annual salary is $35,000. So we are starting at that value. There's a bracket on that. To $45,000, depending on experience. So we can go all the way up to $45,000, but we can't go beyond that. In terms of a graph, we can also talk about the domain and the range of this picture. So the domain goes from left to right. So we start with how far over to the far left can we go? So this one, it looks like we're going to have to estimate it a little bit. And we got to think about our scale here. So look at our scale. It goes 2, 4, 6, 8. So this would be -2, -4. We're going to have to do a little estimating. So from left to right, I'm looking at where is this value all the way over to this value. So it looks maybe like, I don't know, maybe -3.5. And then we have to go all the way over to, and then the finishing mark isn't quite to 8, but I don't know, maybe if this is 6 and this is 8, maybe 7.5. And because there's definite starting and stopping points, filled in dots, we're using brackets. So the domain goes from the left to the right. The range goes from the lowest to the highest. So we're using the y-axis to determine this. So the lowest y value, again, watch your scale. This is -2, -4, -6, -8. And then 2, 4, 6, 8. So the lowest y value is right here at -2. And then going up, the highest y value is here at y = 6. And again, solid dots, they're on there's no open dots here, so both are going to have the brackets on them. So for this last example here, the domain from left to right, it looks like we're starting at x equals, we're looking at the x-axis, 0. And we're going all the way over to the number 24. Brackets on both. Because there's a definite stop, a solid dot there. That dot weren't solid, then we'd say it goes out to infinity. It kept on going, but there's a definite stopping point right there. The lowest y value, so now we're using the y-axis. How low does this go? It goes here at, this looks like -10. That's the lowest y value. All the way up to up here at +10. So the range goes from bottom to top, and the domain goes from left to right.